I saw Jack Pearson. He posted a thing the other day. It's kind of a funny. It's just a picture of a laptop on a desk and some guy saying, "Yeah, I'm working in the studio today."
Oh, yeah. I saw a thing the other day posted that was like a microphone, like a cheap $5 microphone taped to a wall and like some kiddie keyboard toy. And it's like, I'm in the studio.
Yep.
You know, because we all
nowadays, that's kind of what it is. I mean, I've cut play on records in hotel rooms before, you know.
I read a
bass player in Little Richard's band. Of course, he's got a studio in L.A., but he was working on some stuff. But when we were out on the road, he had his laptop with him and a little interface and some little speakers, and he'd set it up there in the hotel room. We'd go in there and overdub, you know.
That's awesome, though, really. I mean, because the concept of being able to make music anywhere.
Yeah.
I mean, that's one of those things. It's like a cell phone. It's like,
sure.
Technology definitely has its drawbacks, but how many...
I mean, they can bring the studio to you now. I mean, just look at...
Right.
You know, just the concept of emailing tracks and all of that.
Right.
It's just mind-boggling, you know.
Well, like, I was talking with Eddie Martin. I've been working with him a lot, and he wanted me to email him just a rough mix of a song we've been working on because he's got an idea, and he wants to kind of roll it in his head to see if he thinks it'll even work before he comes in the studio. So the idea of being able to make some decisions...
Yeah, a little pre-production.
And without having to spend all this time and money and all that to do, it makes things a lot easier. Like, I mean, like your cell phone. I mean, how often before cell phones were a thing that had legit good cameras on them, did you like, man, I wish I had a good camera on
that. I mean, hell, I've got a multi-track tape recorder on my phone right now.
Well, that and email and
drum machines.
Like my memo pad, I've got song ideas and yeah. Well, cool. So I guess let's just get started. Dan should be here in just any minute. He got stuck by the train in Muscle Shoals. So welcome to podcast. Have with us today Kelvin Holly. And
hello out there in podcast land.
Yeah. Kind of feels weird like you're talking to an audience that's not really here in front of you. But
well, I'll make believe.
And we'll make believe. So, Kelvin Holly, guitarist extraordinaire. So, tell us, you're not from Muscle Shoals. You came here when?
No, I'm not really. Well, let's start from the beginning, I guess. My dad was in the Air Force, and I was born in beautiful Fort Dix, New Jersey, and we lived there for maybe a few weeks, and then we ended up in Seward Air Force Base, which was in Smyrna, Tennessee, right outside of Nashville, and we actually lived there for a lot of years, and that's where I first got bit by the music bug, you know.
That's interesting.
That's where I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show, which, like millions of other musicians now, changed their life, you know. Literally the very next day, Ed Sullivan Show was on a Sunday. Go to school Monday morning, everybody's talking about it and talking about starting a band. So
that's fun.
That's how it started, you know. And then
how old would you have been then?
I was probably 11 or 12 at that time. And,
did you play guitar at that point?
Well, I had a little cheap Silvertone that I'd gotten for Christmas a few years earlier, and I knew maybe 2 or 3 chords, you know. And then when I was about 13, he got orders to go to Izmir, Turkey for 2 years. So we ended up going to Turkey, and I started getting more into music. Of course, that's when British invasion stuff really started taking off, you know. Cream and I think the first concert I saw was John Mayall.
Oh, wow.
And so I started really getting into music then. And then my dad, after we did 2 years there, well, actually I was in a little band over there, played a few little like teen clubs and stuff, but it was just fun, you know, with your friends and something that you could all share together, and you really, really enjoyed it. And the sounds you're making, and just, it was just a lot of fun, and I really, really loved it. And then my dad got orders to go to Vietnam for a year, and my mother, being German, her home was Munich, Germany. And so rather than come back to the States, we just decided to pack up there and move to Germany for the year that he was in Vietnam. And that's where I really started getting into learning the guitar and playing a lot, made a lot of friends. And
how old would you have probably been?
15, 16.
Okay, so very formative years.
Yeah. And so we did that, and then he came back from Vietnam, and at first we got orders to move to Tacoma, Washington, to McChord Air Force Base. So several weeks we thought we were moving to Washington State, and then the very, very last minute, they changed it to Montgomery, Alabama, Maxwell Air Force Base.
Wow.
So that's how I ended up in Alabama, And then I started senior year in high school. There was a local band there, and they were, from all accounts, one of the most popular bands in town at the time. But they offered me a gig, and I jumped on it, and I've basically been doing the same thing ever since, playing in bands and just wherever the trail leads,
Well, before we move on, your time in Turkey and Germany, and just overseas in general, in different countries, how do you feel like that possibly influenced your musical style? I mean, I imagine you were listening. Obviously, you were into American music.
Well,
and
we
English
were
music.
getting, we could get. I think it was an armed forces radio network, but they would play, a lot of the stuff that was hits back home.
Right.
Of course, I was listening to stuff that was coming on the radio that was cut here in Muscle Shoals. Of course, I had no idea, Wilson Pickett, and of course a lot of Motown, and then the British invasion stuff, a lot of Jimi Hendrix and Cream and Clapton, and stuff that was popular back then. And I would go buy records, and of course in those days when you wanted to learn something, you couldn't just go on the internet and get a lesson off of YouTube.
Right.
You had to sit there with the record player and move the arm back and forth, and actually, you had to use your ears. You had to find the notes on the guitar. You had to, and then you knew people that knew stuff. You'd learn from them, or you could show them stuff, and it was just
a lot of collaborative effort and a lot of listening.
Yeah, and to this day, the best way to learn to, to play an instrument is, join a band, because you're in the moment, and you got to step up, and that's how you really learn your instrument is being in a band.
I agree, because playing guitar and by yourself at home or wherever you are by yourself.
Yeah, you can only do so much in the bedroom. So
well, you're trying to fill in a lot of gaps. That necessarily.
Go play in front of some people.
Yeah, you're playing or I find with myself playing guitar by myself, or any instrument for that matter, but especially guitar because it's my main instrument. I play too much when I'm playing by myself versus I need to leave space for all these other.
Yeah,
instruments.
well, that's all stuff that you learn.
Yeah.
I remember. Jason Isbell, he used to come kind of sit in with us. I'd get him up to play with us sometimes. And, of course, he was young, too, and he was learning, but, a couple of times he'd get up and he would just solo over everything.
Yeah.
And so you have to, when the singer's singing, man, lay back. You have to know when to play. And it wasn't just Jason. It was any young player that was learning their instrument.
Well, it's a learning curve. You have to do it.
Join a band, man. Even if it's not serious, do it for fun. Try to find some like-minded friends that like to get together on a weekend and just sit around and jam. So
because you learn a lot from other musicians. You really do.
It's like it's going to school.
Yeah, it is. Here's Dan coming in.
Hey, Dan.
Hey. Sorry
Welcome.
about that, gentlemen.
It's all right.
Yeah, Dan Williams just got back. He was stuck behind a train.
This whole city's behind a train.
Yeah.
The whole city's behind one big train.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah. So the bane of the train.
Yeah.
In Spain. So back to the being overseas. Did you spend much time listening to any? I mean, you were in Turkey, you were in Germany. Did you spend much time listening to any of the Turkish and German music?
Yeah, you couldn't avoid it.
So,
I mean, to this day.
did you enjoy? I mean, do you still listen to
Yeah,
any
I mean,
of that?
to this day, I listen to Middle Eastern music. You know,
Really?
because it strikes a chord in my soul. You know, there's a familiar sound. Because when you're out in the streets over there, you hear it. Whether it be
Right.
the guy up in the mosque calling everybody to prayer, or you're passing by a cafe and they're playing all that, you know, and I love it.
Well, the reason I ask is like you can hear it a lot in guitar players like Derek Trucks, especially with the slide, because there's a different musical thing. Like
Derek took lessons.
Yeah.
You know, to get that, you know, he figured out that slide technique.
Because it's not a 12 note or 12 thing, it's the in between.
Well, yeah, there's
and it's a different musical notation.
Ghost notes in there, you know, I like to call them. So,
yeah.
Do they use quarter
it's like
tones?
Miles Davis used to say, there are no wrong notes.
Yeah. That's one reason why I ask that, is because it's such a different musical thought than Western.
Yeah, I mean, you're
music.
influenced by whatever you grow up. I didn't come from a musical family per se. You know, my mom, she tooled around on a little chromatic harmonica, and she had an accordion, and she could play, like I always called it, beer drinking polka music kind of stuff.
Yeah.
You know, and they listened to like easy listening stuff. You know, of course Sinatra and Dean Martin and Tom Jones, and not a lot of country music per se, but just different stuff, you know. So.
That's not unusual to listen to Tom Jones, though.
Yeah, I mean, I always loved Tom Jones.
I see what you did. I see what you did there.
Basically,
It's not unusual. Bad
he's
joke.
an
Bad joke.
R&B singer, you know.
Right.
He grew up listening to that, you know.
Who was the guy that played drums in his band? That guy's freaking amazing.
Well, he's got several. He's a buddy of mine, Marco Giovino.
Yes, that guy is.
Yeah, Marco was a drummer in the Rhythm Aces.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so
Played with Robert Plant.
yeah, he's played with a ton of people. That guy's great.
Yeah, he's great. Natural drummer.
So
I wouldn't say that about anybody. Sounds like you like the man.
Yeah.
Drummers.
He's got a groove, man.
all right. You want me to go down the road on bass player jokes?
1, 3, 5. There we go.
You're also late.
Oh, yeah. Well, see, the thing is, I was trying to throw myself behind the train.
Oh, right. Oh, so you were in Montgomery.
Yeah, we
You're in a
moved to
band.
Montgomery, and I didn't know a soul.
So how did
And
you
it's
end
right
up
in the
here?
middle of right in the middle of all the racial tension, you know.
Yeah.
So it was definitely moving from Turkey and Germany to Montgomery, Alabama was definitely culture shock. So
I would imagine so.
the guitar became my instant best friend. It still is, really, you know. So,
yeah, I mean,
but I
It's an
really
extension of yourself.
started stretching out when I got to Montgomery, you know.
So how long were you in Montgomery, and like at what point?
Well, I was there for several years. I mean, I graduated high school and I was playing around town in bands and stuff, you know.
Yeah.
So.
About what point did you move directly to Muscle Shoals after Montgomery?
Oh, no.
What kind of happened between then and?
No, I mean, like I said before, in the music world, you follow the muse.
Yeah.
You know, you get offers. Going back to Montgomery, I ended up playing with a band called Harmony, which consisted of, at first it was Tommy Shaw from Styx, a guy named Eddie Wolford, and Jimbo Jones, and Tommy Beavers on drums. Tommy got a call from Styx. Of course, he didn't even know who Styx was at the time.
Yeah, he's
And he went to Chicago to audition for Styx and got the gig. And so Then they brought in this young girl named Beth Nielsen Chapman, who's now a famous singer-songwriter. And then they wanted to add an electric guitar player, so I started playing with them, And then one night out of the blue, we used to play 5 nights a week at this bowling alley lounge. We had a great following. It was packed every night. But one night, Robert Byrne popped in. We didn't know him. And he came up to us on a break, said he really liked the band a lot, and he was up here in Muscle Shoals, had a writing contract, and was connected with the studios and whatnot. And he said, man, I'd love to bring you guys up to Muscle Shoals to Wishbone Studios. At that time, it was owned by Clayton Ivey and Terry Woodford. This would have been around probably 1976. But he ended up coming back down there with another guy named Tommy Brassfield, who was also, Tommy passed away many years ago, but he was heavily connected up here as well. And so they brought us up here. It was the first time I'd ever been up here, We went to Wishbone, we played our songs for Terry and Clayton, they signed us to a deal. And so we came up here and we cut 5 or 6 songs and stuff. Then we had a big showcase down in Montgomery where they got record labels to come in and check you out. We never got a deal or anything, but one thing led to another with that, and I decided to leave. I had an offer to go to Memphis and play with this guy that was in Black Oak, Arkansas. He was starting his own band, So me and some buddies of mine, we hightailed and moved to Memphis. And I lived in Memphis, did that for a few years, And I actually lived in Memphis twice. I moved there, tried that, moved back to Montgomery, started playing again with that band Harmony, and then moved again back to Memphis, And around 1985, me and my wife at that time, she was from Athens. I'd had enough of...
Athens, Alabama, or Athens, Georgia?
Athens, Alabama.
Okay.
I'd kind of had enough of the music scene and playing. I'd been on the road and playing club after club after club. And
right.
I said, I've got to get a break. I just got to get away from it. So her dad offered me a job at his pharmacy, Athens Pharmacy. So I could literally quit playing for like a year. And word kind of got out that I was living there because I was in a band before I moved there that we used to play in Huntsville a lot, and we had a pretty big following over there. So I started getting calls to come play here or come play there, and I just said, man, I'm just not interested right now, So long story short, finally I agreed to go play in Huntsville 5 nights a week at a place called The Vapors. And it was me and Bill Hines. Bill was Paul Thorne's guitar player now, and some guys from Huntsville. And started doing that. Got, burnt out on that. It was fun, But got a call one day from Johnny Sandlin, Decatur. Of course, I knew who Johnny Sandlin was. I didn't know him.
Did he have duct tape at that time?
I didn't even know he was in Decatur or was from Decatur or anything, I just know of his work from Capricorn Records.
Right.
Producing the Allman Brothers and all those people.
About what year would this have probably been?
Probably in 89.
Yeah, he definitely
So
had
he had
duct
duct
tape
tape by then, yeah.
90s.
See, that's our stomping ground. Is the Decatur
somewhere
area.
in there. But he called me and said he had a band put together called the Decoys, and they were looking for a guitar player, and said it was him and Scott Boyer and some other guys. And
he was playing bass, right?
Johnny was playing bass.
Who was playing drums at the time?
A guy named Brian Wheeler.
Yeah.
Asked me if I could come over to BJ's Deli over there one night.
Oh, yeah,
and check them out and sit in with them and whatnot. And so I went over there and met them all and played a few songs and got hired. And by all accounts, I've been with the Decoys ever since, almost 30 years.
Oh, wow. Well, for everybody that doesn't know who Johnny Sandlin is, out there in podcast land, we look him up. Johnny, he was an Hourglass.
What's really odd about the whole thing is, even going back to the late 60s, early 70s, a lot of the records I liked or whatever I heard, of course, back then it was all records, albums. And when you get an album, it was always kind of a big deal when an album came
Right.
out. You know, everybody was waiting on it. You
You
know?
look in the liner notes.
But you look in the liner notes to see where it was cut, who all was playing on it. But a lot of times it was the guys, the Swamper guys, and or if anything, like I was a big Allman Brothers fan at the time, and you looked under there and it would say, produced by Johnny Sandlin under special arrangement with Phil Walden, who was the president of the label, you know. So I knew who all those guys were, you know, but I thought, wow, Johnny, that's cool, man. He's got a hell of a track record, you know.
Oh, yeah, because he was in the Hourglass before it was the
But it
Allman
literally
Brothers.
had changed my whole perspective on playing, and because they were an original band and they weren't a cover band, and I'd been in cover bands forever, it seemed like, and you know, if we did a cover song, we did it our way.
Yeah.
It wasn't like we had to learn
Right.
it and try to make it sound like Journey or whatever you were playing in the bars at the time. You know, you
Right.
just play it your way, you know, and so that really helped me find my voice as a musician, you know.
Yeah, because the cover song world can get daunting.
Well,
Really
yeah,
fast.
I mean, if you're playing in bars,
Yeah.
first of all, most of the time you're just background noise. You know, they want to hear you do Wagon Wheel and beer drinking songs and all of that. You know?
How
Yeah.
many times can you play GCD?
Y'all
and how many?
Y'all do anything we know?
I once had a girl that request Katy Perry, and the guy that was the front man in the band I was with at the time looked her right in the
remember
eyes
this.
and said, "No, ma'am, we only play music."
Hey, Katy Perry's pretty good, though.
I know, but it was
But,
just.
but knowing the guy that you're talking about, that I remember that moment. That was
Yeah,
hilarious.
I miss DPs.
Yeah, everybody does. It was a smoky little dive bar, but it was a blast. But yeah, so Johnny was kind of your connection in a lot of ways to the Shoals too, wasn't he? I mean, because he was kind of hooked in with here too.
yeah, but I mean, because of the Decoys, you know, I want to say it was Wayne Chaney. It seemed like it would have been early 90s. I didn't know Wayne at the time. I think I just met him. But he said he had a friend over here that had a little bar called Union Station, and he was interested in having bands on Tuesday nights. I mean, you know, and so we talked to Danny Lambert was his name, and he said, well, Danny said, well, what would y'all think about maybe coming and playing every other Tuesday? And we said, well, yeah, why not? Let's try it, you know. So, I mean, at the time, we were just kind of playing around Decatur at BJ's or maybe Birmingham. So we started coming over here. First couple of Tuesdays, it was slow, and then it started picking up. You know, Danny would get plywood out. He'd put plywood on top of the pool tables, put chairs around the pool tables. That was where everybody sat. And then it started like really packing out. And we'd play every Tuesday. And it would be packed. And we did that for years, you know, like 4 or 5 years we were there. And we built up a great following, and even to the point of where he actually closed down for 2 weeks and actually expanded the club, you know, doubled the size of the club, you know, built a stage. And to me, it kind of changed the vibe of the place, but it's still packed out, you know. But we had a lot of local musicians coming to check us out, you know. And that's how I met the Swamper guys, you know.
Yeah.
David Hood, Roger Hawkins, and Barry Beckett at that point had already moved to Nashville, you know. So, but they would come in, and it's mainly David and Roger would come in a lot.
Yeah, David wasn't playing bass with the Decoys at this point.
No, I mean, they weren't playing live at all, you know, and so we met them, and I would always say, hey, man, why don't you guys come on up and sit in with us, you know, and they go, oh, no, man, we don't know your stuff. We're studio musicians. We read charts. We don't really know your stuff. I said, finally, one night, I think Roger got up with us, you know, maybe played a shuffle, and he had a great time. Then we got David up, you know. And then at one point, you know, the drummer we had at the time, he got sick. And then our bass player, something happened with him. It's hard to remember because we had, especially drummers and bass players, it was like a revolving door. But at one point, we had David and Roger was our rhythm section And then Roger had to have some surgery on his neck, and he had to leave.
I didn't know Roger played with you guys.
Yeah, Roger was with us for about a year and a half.
Oh, wow.
And so and David stayed with us ever since, so.
Yeah, see, when I met you guys, it was pretty much the setup it is now.
Yeah, all those original guys in the
was with
Decoys
you.
are all gone. They all passed on. I'm the only one left. So.
Wow. Oh, so who, kind of going backwards a little bit, who would you say are probably your biggest musical influences? I mean, you've mentioned, Allman Brothers and Cream and Beatles and stuff. I mean, like, I know talking with you before, Clapton has definitely got to be up there, right?
Yeah, I mean, it's really hard to say who your influences are, I mean, I was influenced by everything, But, starting out, when you're first learning how to play lead guitar, you tend to gravitate towards what you like. And for me, it was the blues. It was mainly the British guys playing American blues.
Right.
Because back then, that's what they were doing.
Right.
So you'd pick up an album and you'd, like when John Mayall and the Blues Breakers, for instance, they had Clapton playing guitar on that one album. But you'd look on there at the songs to see who wrote them. And it would be like McKinley Morganfield or Chester Burnett or these people like that. I didn't know who these people were until like many, many years later. I finally realized, well, that's Howlin' Wolf and Muddy Waters.
Yeah.
They're just taking their songs and kind of doing their thing with it, So those were my biggest influences, And of course, there were several people in bands I played with that were influenced on me, like Bill Hines, guitar player I played with for years. He was great. It still is. He's a great player, But we would teach each other stuff, So, I mean, if we learned a song at band practice or stuff, you learn that, So that's kind of what your influences are,
So, at what point did you start doing session work? I mean, not just recording like your band that you're in, but like being a guitar player for hire.
My first introduction to session world was that band Harmony when we came up here, So
yeah. So when did people start giving you the phone call? Of like, hey man, we got this session coming up.
As far as Muscle Shoals, I guess when I first started coming here to play a lot was when I started kind of getting sessions. But one night at Union Station, I met Jimmy Johnson. He came up to me on a break, introduced himself. He said he really loved the way I played. Would I want to come to the studio tomorrow that they're cutting Bobby Bland? And he'd love to get me on there. And I said, are you kidding me? I love Bobby Bland.
Oh, yeah.
So I came right here. And we did some of it here, and then we went to Jackson, Mississippi to Malaco. So that was my first session that I did here, And then I started getting calls for other stuff, and word started getting out that, well, there's another guy in town, and so I started getting calls to do sessions. And of course, Johnny Sandlin had a studio in Decatur. He was cutting a lot of people, and I played on a lot of stuff over there,
What kind of stuff? I mean,
well, it was mainly different indie bands that he was cutting. Widespread Panic. We cut a Greg Allman album. Jerry Joseph. Whoever he was working on.
Right.
Jeremy ended up with that organ. Jeremy got his B3.
Oh, did he?
Yeah.
That's good.
So that's at Clearwave now.
Yeah.
Great. Yeah, that's a good B3.
Yeah, we got to use it on the King's record that never actually came out.
Oh, yeah.
At Duct Tape.
Yeah.
We did it at Duct Tape.
Yeah.
That record's in limbo somewhere.
Yeah, I practically lived at that studio. In fact, I did live there for about a month.
That was a great
When I was going
place.
through a divorce, you know.
Oh, no. So there were probably better circumstances to live at the studio.
Yeah, I mean, you know, Johnny just said, well, there's the couch. Okay.
Thank you.
There's the bathroom.
Which, I'm sorry, I was checking my phone a moment ago. I think my classes just got canceled. We got a tornado warning.
Oh, wow.
Really?
Yeah.
Fun.
So, well,
Did-
Thursday's my long day, so,
Do we need to pause or
well, I mean,
Yeah, I don't know. We may need to
we're kind of in a fort?
do a part 1 and a part 2.
I don't know if there would
I
be
haven't
anywhere
gotten an
better.
alert, and I usually get alerts.
Yeah,
I got it from
says
UNA.
tornado warning issued for Lauderdale County.
I got it from UNA. I got the line alert.
But we'll continue. You know.
If
Well-
we die, this is a fairly good place
Is
to
that a
die.
tornado siren?
That's the dog.
I hear there's a high pitched hum, and I hear it, but
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a machine sound or if it's a.
I don't know.
Well, no, that's my computer making
Oh,
that
okay.
noise.
Oh, if I die, I die.
Well, so you want to just wrap this up and then do a part 2?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
Yeah. All right. Well, hey, this is a good spot to stop. Thanks for listening. We're going to dodge tornadoes.